All right. Are we up and running? Chris, are you there?
I'm here.
What? And
What?
hi, America. Chris, what in the hell do you have on?
I'm wearing the
What is that?
jersey. It's kind of going to be my MO. I'm going to do jersey of the week. Josh
We're
Allen.
not talking about. We're not. Oh, I was gonna say we're not talking about Damar Hamlin. What? What
No.
the,
I think we're going to save that.
okay. I mean, I'm just saying. Why are you wearing? You do know who's playing in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, I know. We didn't
You
even
do
get a chance to
understand that.
beat you guys again.
Yeah, you probably won't. Well, maybe on the fourth time. Maybe. Just let me just remind all of you all. This is the Jim Spiracy Show,
Don't do it.
and remember,
Don't do it.
huh?
Don't do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. It's the Jim Spiracy Show, and you all know this is the land of the free and the home of the what, Chris? Chiefs.
Got something to say, you wanted to play, then come running my way and ruin G status is dead. No, ready to go, about to go in, you already know. Got my instructions, now give me your audience, hand me your mic and I'm ready to blow. One for the money, two for the show, three for everybody who encouraged me to go, get it. We finally did it, I ain't never turning back, shawty. I'm fully committed to my beliefs, I'm committed to the city. I'm about to give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for.
And now, from a cave behind a waterfall in the heart of the Ozarks, it's the cipher of the classified, the Riddler of the ridiculous, the speaker of the surreptitious, and the host of Jimspiracy, Jimmy Dodds.
Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Oh yes, man. How long has it been since we've heard that, man? It's been too long. It's been too long. Hey, thank you all for joining us for another episode of Jimspiracy. We've been gone for a while, and that guy in that very fluorescent blue shirt over there on the other side of the cam, there you are, man. This is the guy right here.
I'm used to
This
being
is,
behind the camera.
well, you're going to be in front of the camera on this one, especially since I knew you was going to wear that. If I'd known you was going to wear that, you probably, maybe we'd have done it next week or something, man.
You probably would have
Anyway,
put your
hey man,
Chiefs hat on.
how are you, buddy? Seriously, before
I'm
I even
doing
get to
okay.
going,
We got a great show
okay.
tonight with Bart is back.
Bart Sibrel.
Yeah.
All right. And for those of you that don't know who Bart is, let me tell y'all. Bart is the guy. He's the author of what's his book called, Chris?
Moon Man.
Yeah, he's the author of Moon Man. He's also the guy that went around and followed around all of the astronauts and told them, if you actually walked on the moon, place your hand on the Bible. He was socked. Who's the astronaut that socked him in the jaw, Chris?
Buzz Aldrin.
Buzz Aldrin. He was also kicked in the butt cheeks by a guy.
I think
You're
that was
gonna hear him say
Neil Armstrong kicked him in the butt.
And as a matter of fact, I got to make sure I ask him about that. But hey, go to Bart Sibrel after this show and look at some of these videos and some of this work that he's done. This guy's outstanding. He reached out to us he had some information for us, which is one reason why we have him back on the show tonight. If I may, there's been quite a few people that have reached out and said, hey, what are you guys doing the show? When are you coming back? Hey, we had some things go on. I'm no longer in Nashville. Chris, you are still have no idea how bad it broke my heart to leave you and Mary Beth. But
It broke my heart
anyway,
to see you go.
Chris, okay, by the way, we're not going to talk about any of that other stuff in Nashville, about us being fearless or not.
Yeah, I'll just say, we left that show at the same time. We're not going to talk about it, but no matter what happened there, it was a successful year because you and I became friends.
Were we supposed to become friends?
I think it was in God's plan.
That wasn't what I asked you. I said, were we supposed to become friends?
I don't think that was in the playbook for certain people.
Okay, there we go. I'm done with that, man.
How you doing
I'm
in
done with
KC?
I'm blessed. I'm glad to be here. Things aren't going necessarily as well as I would like for them to go, but man, if you are trying to live a life, you're trying to live your life and do what you feel is right, doing what's right in the eyes of God, it's not going to always be easy. It's not going to always be. So right now, for me, just to get back to being a mere mortal, just being human, just being a dad, still raising my two boys. Hey man, I'm good. I'm blessed. I have my health. I'm as healthy as I've been. I haven't been hospitalized. I haven't had any surgeries.
And that's where we switched places, because that's the other big news, is that my health has gone downhill, and that's another big reason for our delay in getting back on the air here.
Would you mind telling the people what's going on with you, man?
Yeah. So basically, I got cancer. It's not good. It's stage 4. Started in my appendix, and it spread. And so I've had 3 laparoscopic surgeries to try to get ready to do a surgery to cut the cancer out, and they ended up saying it's not operable. So I'm on chemo now, and that's really helping so far, I think. I'll ask for prayers this week because I'm getting my first scan since chemo, and I've been feeling better, and there's a good chance it's shrinking the cancer. So, prayers up from Jim Spiracy Nation.
I want to say this to everybody. Chris and his wife, Mary Beth, are probably 2 of the most spiritual people that I've ever met in my life. And I know that you say that the chemo is doing good. I want to tell you the prayers that you and your wife send up, the prayers that your circle of friends, and I've read and I've seen your circle, man. You have a powerful group of friends around you, and
I do.
I have to really think that's playing an important part of it, because I'm gonna tell you right now, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, prayer is everything, and that's what I'm leaning on. And I say the chemo's working, but I think the prayers are an even bigger part of it. And hopefully we'll find out this week that the cancer has shrunk down. I feel great. I walked 2.5 miles on Sunday, so as long as it's not a chemo day, I'm feeling good.
I got to tell you about that. I read that you did that, so I would like to say that I walked around my block twice today. Honest to God, I did. I didn't do 2.5 miles, but I did do 2 blocks. I just want you to know. Hey, man.
All right, listen, so we're going to go to a segment of headlines in a second. But before we do that, here's my headline from this past week. Indiana priest says he's cured of brain cancer or brain tumor after trip to Lourdes. Thanks be to God. This is the guy, Father John Hollowell from Indiana. And so for those of you who don't know, Lourdes is a shrine in France for an apparition of the Virgin Mary. And right before I started chemo, I went on a little pilgrimage to a shrine up near Green Bay, Wisconsin, called Champion, Our Lady of Good Help. And that was when I started feeling better. But I started chemo the next week, so I don't know what's what. But what I found interesting about this Father Hollowell's story is that I always thought about miracles like it's going to be like a zap and you're going to feel better suddenly, and I didn't have that. But if you read the Fox story, I'll put that up again so you can Google it easily. If you read that story, you'll see he started feeling better, and he didn't claim a cure till months later. So I'm hoping something like that's going on with me, but who knows? That's part of the mystery of our show. Maybe we'll have something miraculous to report next week. Who knows?
Listen, with this little small circle of gym spirites that we have, we're gonna see. I try gonna feel something. Trust me, you will.
Thank you.
Listen, all I can say is inspiration to me, and hopefully, and for me, I have to say this: I wanted you to be here on this camera. I wanted the people to see you. You should have been out here in front with me all along. We were doing the show, but we had stipulations that we had to try to go by, and we had to try to follow, and anyway,
well, I'm
that.
new to being on camera, but yeah, you kept telling me to get in front of the camera, so here I am. I'll stick with you for the told you so segment. I'll roll the open for that.
Let's do some headlines, man. Since and we haven't done the show since what, October? Was it October?
September, actually.
September, October. Okay,
yeah.
So a lot of things have happened. So we have a lot of things to catch up. And if it kind of seems like the shows, hey, we got to get back into the groove. So this is going to be kind of little than what we've done. All right? Since we did the last show, let's just start with January 1st, because we talk about me coming back to Kansas City. One of the things that we talked about before, now you talk about you and your wife going back to wherever. I remember at one point you were talking about possibly leaving Nashville before I did. You were talking about leaving. And
just
then
because
at that
of
point,
news in the world, I ended up at a prepper conference, and everyone's like, I don't even know if the election in November is going to happen. And anyways.
Well, okay. So we were both kind of on the same page. So let's go September, October. Let's go straight to the first of the year, right? Because one of the things that I'm like, hey, man, 2023 is going to be a crazy year. And I didn't have any stern reason for it. It was just in my soul. And as of like January 1st, what happened? Like the Pope died, the Queen died, Michael Jackson's wife died, Elvis Presley's daughter died. And if I'm not mistaken, that was like the first week of January of this year, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right about that?
Yeah, there's some old wives' tale about people dying in threes, but the Pope, the Queen, and Elvis's daughter, that's a big three, all right around the first of the year.
And Michael Jackson's wife.
Yeah, her too.
Let me ask you this one, Chris. Have you heard about Ellen and the death of her DJ Twitch?
Okay, this was not on my radar until you brought it up. There's the headline.
Well, I mean, her DJ Twitch, everybody knows him. That they've seen him on, I forgot what the dance show was that he's on, but everybody loves DJ Twitch. DJ Twitch evidently left his wife, left his home, and walked a few blocks to a hotel and unlifed himself.
The only I hadn't even read the article. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he allegedly unlifed himself. To me, you all know why I'm talking about this, because one of the last stories we did was about Anne Heche, the fiance of Ellen. So we told you then about the affiliations with Ellen, and now we just have DJ. And everybody calls him DJ Twitch, but the word that always sticks in my mind when I look at the word Twitch, right?
What?
Take the T off, and what do you have?
Which, yeah.
All right, then. And that is who? Ellen.
Well, I guess it's a pressure cooker working for Ellen. So.
Well, okay. There it is. All right, let's keep moving, man. The other story that I will not go into hard is the Tyre Martin story. Yeah. Everybody is talking about this. Everybody has an opinion about this. Me and my 17 years of law enforcement, I evidently don't see this as most people see it. I definitely don't see it as most black people see it. And I think that it was just a simple case of it's a group of bad officers instead of being a group of bad black officers. I think it's bad police work. Personally, in my 17 years, if that was a group of my men, yeah, I'd probably fire you too, especially if the fact it was 5 of y'all and you couldn't handle one man. Now, that's my problem. I had a problem. No, I didn't like the tactics that they used. I don't like them. But the fact of the matter is you should be able to subdue, handcuff, and bring a person to compliance. It's not a bar fight. And I used to always tell my officers that this is not a bar fight. We're trained in order to do this. I always told you about George Floyd. Back at the show, we used to talk, and I would tell you that would not have happened because we would have known how to handle that. Once again, anytime we can take race and put race into something, as Americans, we do. And I think that I just didn't like it. I didn't like the fact of it being 5 black officers and 1 black man. No, it was 5 officers and 1 suspect.
Yeah, I don't think it's a race issue, no matter what people want to turn it into. But here's the headline from yesterday that supposedly 7 additional people will be disciplined, 7 more officers. You can see that protest sign down there. What about the other officers? If you watch the video, there's a lot of people responding. And anyways.
Well, if you watch the video, you're also going to see someone tase him.
Yeah.
That person that had that taser, his hand didn't look like this. His hand looked like yours.
And didn't he tase the other cop by accident?
Well, when you shoot a taser and you're that close, that can happen. Remember, somebody OC sprayed somebody, and you saw the officer get up.
Yeah.
So, as I said, there were a bunch of things that went on that I'm like, what the Sam hell are y'all doing?
Yeah.
So, yes. And once again, are we saying that's a white officer or is that just an officer? In George Floyd, you had the white officers. You had, 1 or 2 black officers? I mean, the bottom line is, if you were involved, then you were involved. But it looks so much better when you put up 5 black officers.
Yeah.
And those are the things that sell headlines. And that's my problem with it, as opposed to just the truth and the law. And I'm really for truth and law. Truthfully. Yeah. So I need you all to go ahead and handle that. And Eric, y'all say what y'all want to say, but I want to tell you, y'all sound stupid as hell. But all right, can we keep going, man?
Let's go.
I'm sorry, man. Let's go. What about the
okay? We can't ignore
Chinese
the
balloon.
Yeah,
the Chinese balloon.
The Chinese balloon. Now, and yesterday they picked up the pieces out of the ocean and gave us some pictures. So
it looks like a bed sheet with wood on it.
It does. They say that thing was like the size of 3 Greyhound buses. It's huge.
Okay. But my problem was, how long did that thing, where did they shoot it down at?
It went from Montana all the way to Carolina before they shot it down.
It was seen here over the Midwest. It was here over the Midwest in certain parts of Kansas and Missouri.
It probably flew right over you and right over me and took pictures, did whatever it wanted. So
but we let it go. We let it go. Joe said on Wednesday, let's shoot it down. And I think by the time he finally got the full order out, it wasn't until Friday. Shoot what? Kamala, what was that we were supposed to shoot down, honey?
Oh, man. Yeah.
And look, let me just say this, man. I have to tell you, America, because I wasn't there, but didn't we drop a bomb on Nagasaki in 1945?
What's that got to do with the price of tea?
What that has to do is I would not have let that thing float from here to here the moment it came.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. We have the technology. It should have been shot down up in Montana.
I really think that was that was not a good look for America.
No.
I'm just going to tell you, I really don't think that was a good look. And if there was ever a time, and I hate to say it, but no. As a matter of fact, who was it? Was it China? I think it was China or somebody. They stole one of our spy planes back in the 90s. They ran into it and it crashed and they kept it.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, see, you all don't remember that. So I'm just telling you, this little thing is going on and going on. And let me just add this. Okay, has anybody heard China complain about it?
They've said we overreacted.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going, man.
One more thing from that. Alex Jones's take is that the balloon would be the perfect EMP platform. I thought that was an interesting take.
Electronic magnetic pulse device?
Yeah, basically they could have used that balloon to knock out power to half the U.S. or something.
But see, here's the thing. Who did it come from? The EMP comment. It came from who? Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And we all know that Alex Jones is what? Bat crap crazy. Okay, so we're not supposed to listen to anything he says, right? But let me tell you, in the words of Rosanna Dana, it could happen.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I just want to say that it could happen. Okay, so that's all. And if we just look at some of the things that are going on, that could happen. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm done. All right. Let's go to the next one. What do we got? Oh, this is one of yours.
Yeah, Pfizer.
Project. What is that? Veritas.
Project Veritas. Yeah.
Veritas. Okay.
So.
And they admitted to making a variant.
Yeah, basically.
In order to, go ahead and tell the people, Chris.
Basically, they got this guy, Jordan Walker, doctor in development there, on tape, on a date, admitting all this stuff.
It's not funny, and I apologize. Because I just realized, I just realized what this was, and he was on a date, and while he was on a date, somebody was trying to get information out of him, and in order to impress his date, he started spilling the goods about Project Veritas.
Well, to Project Veritas. His date was an undercover guy. And
exactly.
Basically, he admitted to that Pfizer was creating variants of the virus in order to create the cure or a vaccine, new versions of the vaccine. So new versions of COVID with new versions of the vaccine. And he also, there's 3 videos. Just go to Project Veritas's Twitter page.
Right.
The first one is about the gain of function and creating new versions. The second one, he admits that the vaccine is affecting women's menstrual cycles. And the third one is him going crazy and trying to smash the iPod once he realizes that he's being taped. So it's a fun 30 minutes of your life. I encourage you to go watch it.
I encourage you to go watch it. And here's my challenge to you. Watch it and don't crack a smile. That's all I can say. Just watch it and don't crack a smile. Let's get to number 5.
The funniest thing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The funniest thing to me was when I brought this story to you, and you hadn't heard it yet, and then I put the picture up, and you go, "Oh, damn, it's a brother."
See, I wasn't going to say that, Chris. See, I wasn't going to.
But I wasn't thinking about that, but it just made me laugh that you noticed it. I wouldn't think about it.
That's why I wanted people to go watch it, because the first thing they're going to say is, the guy from Pfizer's black?
And
okay, then.
The guy from Pfizer's gay. He's on a gay date.
Well, that's not surprising. That's not surprising at all.
Okay. Enough of that. But my fifth headline, our last headline here, is from the Grammys Sunday night. Did you see any of it, Jim?
I guarantee I probably watched like 7 seconds of it. I saw that performance. I turned the channel and I saw all this red.
So you saw this one.
I think they were singing the song Unholy.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was like, I'm gone. I wasn't watching it anymore.
So you missed the intro to it.
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay. I'm about to put something on the screen that's almost more scary. Name that person.
Oh, that's the lady from the Hunger Games, ain't it?
Try again.
Who that is?
That's Madonna, my friend. She introduced the song.
Like a virgin? My Madonna? Like a virgin Madonna?
Yeah. They kept the camera really wide, and my wife and I were watching it, and I'm like, she looks a little strange. And now we know why they didn't do a close-up, because this is what the close-up looked like. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Madonna. And like I said, as far as the Sam Smith and Kim Petras Unholy performance.
Yeah.
CBS tweeted ready to worship.
Yeah. Look at that. We are ready to worship. And then they quickly deleted it after people are like, wait, what are you talking about worshiping for? Pretty twisted.
One more thing, Chris. Did you see the performance by DJ Khaled,
No.
Rick Ross?
I missed that.
Jay-Z? Yeah, they were dressed in all purple, and I think they did DJ Khaled's song "I Am God."
Figures. Yeah.
See, I didn't even want to tell you that because I didn't even want to put the picture up.
Okay, and I don't really want to put this up, but
oh boy,
the reason I put this off, I put this for number 5 after the Pfizer story. I'm going to play a clip here. We're going to see a little of the offensive material, and then a little surprise.
Oh.
This is the ending of it.
Bro, I promise I'm not looking. So if you're going to ask me a question about it, I'm not.
Just watch.
No, I'm not.
Goes to an audience shot.
Whoa, did they just go to hell?
Look at
Pfizer.
It was sponsored by Pfizer. And they put that right after. I mean,
what was the background in that?
I don't know.
That look no. When you look at the Pfizer,
we go to the end. I don't know what that is. That's a good question.
That looks like hell, buddy. That's fire.
Pfizer in hell. That's appropriate.
Oh my gosh! But you know what? This has been going on for a long time. They put it out there for you. That's the purpose of these events for these leaders. These are the people that are taking our country to hell, and we're paying them well to do it. And this is the night that they all gather to exalt each, because they're in a special group. And I'm telling you, I didn't watch the Super Bowl, the halftime show when they had, I think, was it the weekend? And I think I told you then it was going to be an Illuminati fest. And now they have what's her name? Rihanna? Is that her name? That's going to be on the halftime show?
Year. Yeah.
And let me ask this. Has anybody seen the pictures of Rihanna? They keep showing this one shot of her. Who is the lady from the Bible that had the snakes coming out of her head?
I don't think that's the Bible. It's like Greek mythology, the Medusa.
Okay. That's who she looks like to me. I don't know why. And having said that, that's what Madonna's hair looks like. Notice she had the little things going up on the side of her head. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that's their thing.
Let's get out of this.
Yeah, let's get out of this. I'm telling you, I normally would say that our country is in need of prayer and is in need of healing. But hey, man, I think that we are at a point now that our world is in need of healing and in need of prayer. On that note right there, let's be done. We'll be right back with Bart Sibrel here on Jim Spears.
The 1969 moon landing. It's considered one of the greatest triumphs in the history of humanity. It's the crown jewel of American technology and ingenuity. It was a beacon of hope for the country in the heart of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. Could it have been completely faked? It's one of the most enduring and mysterious conspiracy theories ever, and it just won't go away. With distrust in our government at an all-time high, some estimate that 20% of Americans think the moon landing was faked. The percentage is far higher in England and Russia. Could the US have staged this elaborate hoax just to score points in the Cold War with Russia? How would they have done it? Most theorize that they used Hollywood special effects to trick the world, some pointing the finger at director Stanley Kubrick. The theory is that the technology is not available to travel that far. The massive distance and the radiation belt are just two of the obstacles. Scientists and authors question many things about the moon landing narrative. Why are shadows coming from different directions as they would with studio lights? Why have astronauts given conflicting stories? How did they survive 250-degree temperatures? Why have we never returned to the moon? Why has NASA evidence been destroyed? The questions are endless. Tonight, Jimspiracy will ask a few more. This time to the man who got punched by Buzz Aldrin himself, just for being curious.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to tell you how much I appreciate our guest for coming on tonight. It's actually been quite a few people that have asked what's going on with Jimspiracy. I've had a few people try to get me to come back on the air before it's time. But there was one person that reached out and said, hey, I got something that we need to talk about. And that's my next guest, Mr. Bart Sibrel. Is it Sibrel or Sibrel?
I say Sibrel.
Okay, Sibrel, okay.
I grew up saying Sibrel, and I did the genealogical history of it, and it's French, Sibrel. So when I started changing it in TV interviews, it really got my dad angry. It's Sibrel. And I said, no, actually it's Sibrel. But anyway.
Okay, so we hit them both. Listen,
yes.
Let me thank you for coming back on the show. Thank you. I think you were our last guest that we had. And for us to start back up with you, that's kind of serendipitous. You were actually at my house in Nashville. And as we were leaving, you announced that you were moving, but you didn't just move to another state or another town. Where'd you move to, man?
Well, I'm on Tranquility Base right now, and nothing's here, just me. It's very depressing, but
what is Tranquility Base?
that's the alleged location of them landing on the moon. But no, yeah, the United States is a sinking ship. And it's like the Titanic. The first few lifeboats only had a couple of people on them, and 90% of the seats were empty because everyone's like, oh, the ship that God can't sink, right? But America's kind of in that position, and maybe you might want to reconsider riding through the end time somewhere else with a little bit less tyrannical of a government, but that's your call.
Wow, we're not going to get started like that, man. We're going to try to stay on course. You are not going to. So, did you move to the place that you said you were going to move to?
Yes, I mean, I tried to generally keep my location private, but
exactly.
Yeah, I move around. My dad was in the Air Force. So I'm kind of used to moving around, and so I tend to adapt and set up a home base pretty easily, pretty quickly. I don't need a whole lot of space. I've had big places and small places and so forth. But you relocated. I guess Nashville just didn't suit you, or Kansas City home?
Kansas City's home, man. We had a conversation, and I told you, I told you, I said, the Lord is telling me to go back home. I don't know why I didn't, and I still don't sometimes know why, but nonetheless, I'm trying to be a humble and faithful servant, and I'm here and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. How's everything going with you, man? You good?
Yeah, going pretty good. How about your new fort over there? Getting settled in?
Yes. Listen here. Tell me this real quick before I get going. One of the last things we talked about was the Artemis rocket. What's your thoughts about the Artemis rocket? Are they going to have a successful launch in November?
Well, I mean, they allegedly have mannequins orbiting the moon or trying to orbit the moon. I thought they launched the thing with mannequins on board. It's interesting that NASA has never kept a schedule, ever, except the most complicated mission of all time, right? And they said in 2014 they were going to have the Artemis rocket or equipment thereof orbiting the moon in 2018 with humans on board. So multiply 4 years by double, and twice the time, they only have mannequins orbiting the moon. So it's kind of weird they could play golf on the moon and drive cars on the moon and walk around the moon for days at a time with 1 minute the computing power of a cell phone back in 1969 in the first attempt. And here we are with 50 years more technology, and we can't even walk on the moon, and we can't even send humans to orbit the moon. We have to use mannequins because of lethal space radiation until we figure that out. So my book that came out, Moon Man, the true story of a filmmaker on the CIA hit list, is kind of an interactive book. I'm a filmmaker, and the book actually has 16 video links. So basically, I write a chapter and say, now I'm about to talk about my movie, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. So go to Sibrel.com. My last name, S as in Sam, I, B as in boy, R-E-L, Sibrel.com, and watch link number 2, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, so you know what I'm talking about. And so the book mentions that for the first time in the history of the entire world, technology was greater in the past than in the future, because today NASA can only send humans 250 miles into space, and the moon is 1,000 times farther. So somehow, when all of NASA combined had 1 millionth the computing power of a cell phone, they were able to send astronauts 1,000 times farther 50 years ago than they can today with 5 decades better technology. So technology is supposed to be worse in the past and better in the future, but we have it flip-flopped this occasion if the moon missions are real, which they're not. And that's why you can't have greater technology in the past than the future.
Well, okay, that's the real reason we're here. Okay, that right there, that was a great segue to why we're here right now. Because shortly after we were together and you were on the show, you released a video confession that got like 800,000 views, if I'm not mistaken. And if we could, if you don't mind, I want to play a little piece of this clip from this video that you released, this confession.
My birth given name is Eugene Reuben Akers. So this is my deathbed confession because now I'm dying of cancer. In 1968, my father was stationed at Cannon Air Force Base in New Mexico. Dad was one of 3 guards that guarded the inside of the front entrance. There was a list of 15 people who could enter. No one else was allowed by order of President Johnson. There was hundreds of dump trucks that came in and dumped sand and stone, and cement powder was powdered over the top of all that to make it look like a lunar landscape. They had men that fashioned it into a lunar landscape, he said. The lunar lander that was reassembled back inside the hangars. All of the walls were painted flat black, and the ceilings as well. He was sworn to secrecy by the NSA, and they would put him in prison for breaking that oath. When Dad saw the moon landing on TV, he cried. He said he knew that what he had witnessed on TV was exactly what they recorded in that hangar. He said on his deathbed that he had to tell somebody before he died because it was just too important not to tell. His name is Cyrus Eugene Akers. He was born on July 17th, 1933. He died on September 28th, 2002. 07596. That's my dad. And it must have been a really early picture because he's only got 2 stripes, so that was back in the 50s, I'm sure. Probably not long after I was born. I was visited by men with black suits, and I was told in no uncertain terms to drop this whole project, not to say any more to anybody, or me and my wife and my son could disappear.
Okay, Bart, tell us who that was.
Well, that gentleman was Gene Gilmore, and he was the son of Cyrus Eugene Akers, whose name I'm saying publicly, and he said publicly for the first time. It's actually not in the book because he was still alive when the book was published, and he didn't want the extra publicity. But I uploaded.
And that's why you didn't include him in the book, right? I'm sorry.
Well, indirectly, I didn't include him by name, but I do now. Giving interviews, I'll mention that his father's name was Cyrus Eugene Akers, and he was alive at the time the book was published, and he didn't want to deal with the publicity associated with his father eyewitnessing the moon landing fraud at his Air Force base until he died, because he was dying of cancer. He didn't want to have to deal with it. And the other thing, the new thing that I also did not put in the book because his son was still alive, was what his father really confessed on his deathbed was that he murdered a friend, a coworker, to keep it a secret because his friend thought faking the moon landing was morally wrong. And he was going to tell a reporter, and either Cyrus Eugene Akers, who was the chief of security at Cannon Air Force Base, took it at his own initiative, or he was ordered to do it. He murdered this coworker. And that's what he actually confessed, Jimmy, on his deathbed. That was of greater significance to him to get right with God before he died. He was dying himself. And so he said the reason why he killed him was because he was covering up the moon landing fraud, which was filmed June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1968 at Cannon Air Force Base in Clovis, New Mexico. That base is actually the headquarters for the entire Air Force of the Special Operations, or the Intelligence Division. His father received a list from President Johnson of the 15 visitors who were allowed in the visitor's door to eyewitness the faking of the moon landing, filmed a year in advance. He gave that list to me, and we published it in the book. Some people I recognized who were on that list, like Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, the flight director Eugene Kranz, the rocket designer Werner von Braun, Van Allen, the radiation belt discoverer, as to the reason why they cannot go to the moon to this day. It's one of the clips at Sibrel.com. NASA says the technology to survive going through radiation on the trip to the moon has yet to be invented. So, and then there were other people on the list who I never heard of, one of which who's still alive is Robert Emenager, who is a science fiction writer. And he spent his whole life saying the moon landings are real and aliens are real. I bet they're just as real as one another, aren't they? And so President Johnson did not run for re-election when he was eligible, and no one knew why. It was because the faking of the moon landing was going to be in the next term, and who knew that would work? What if they got caught? And having Houston control in his home state of Texas, that would be very embarrassing. And this is why Nixon did not show up for the launch of, when 1 billion people were watching around the world, the president isn't even there. He's too afraid. He's too afraid of historically going down in history as a photograph of him and Neil Armstrong shaking hands and smiling before the launch, and it later coming out that they faked it. So the guy shows up at the second launch after they got away with it, when it's safe, you see. And so this whole idea that it's Republicans versus Democrat is just not true, because Republican Nixon gave it the thumbs up and Democratic Johnson was there supervising it before they did it. And so Cyrus Eugene Akers, as he was dying of cancer on his deathbed, confessed that he eyewitnessed the faking of the moon landing at Cannon Air Force Base and that he murdered a coworker to keep it a secret. I had already produced a film called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, which you can see for free at Sibrel, S as in Sam, B as in boy, REL, Sibrel.com. I was given $1 million, Jimmy, by someone who builds rockets for NASA, who knows that it's fake, who wishes to remain anonymous so his stock doesn't go down. And he knows the moon missions are fake. He considered it morally wrong, and he thinks the world needs to know, so he gave me $1 million to produce these films. During the course of investigating this, we uncovered classified footage of fake photography from the first mission to the moon, which came out in my film many years ago, which you can see for free at Sibrel.com. And then I thought, I want to put this literally 2 decades of my life behind me and go on to hopefully making inspirational feature films, the Lord willing. I thought, well, let me just put it all in a book, kind of the backstory of what was going on when I started investigating this, including literally being kidnapped and drugged by the CIA. And that happened to me when
you were kidnapped and drugged by the CIA?
Absolutely. I go into this.
Okay.
I go into this in a chapter in my book called The Funny Thing Happened on the Way to CNN, where basically after I found this footage, that day my phone calls were interrupted. I was followed from church. I grab the tape, I run to CNN, and I'm literally stopped by government agents on the door of CNN who illegally arrest me. They drug me with true serum. They have a clipboard out, and they ask me all these questions. Where's the original? Where are the copies? And all this stuff. I actually escaped their custody, and I make my way back to Nashville, where I live, and I peed in a cup. And I said, I got him. I'm going to prove I was drugged by this exotic CIA drug. So I gave it to a friend to put in a lab in his name, not mine. And when we met days later for me to get the results of this lab work, he says, well, there was a problem. And I'm like, oh, what problem? He says, well, the lab had a break-in over the weekend. And I said, yeah, so what? He says, well, funny thing, the only thing stolen was your urine sample. So I was trying to outwit the CIA and had a little bit of a problem trying to do that. And nevertheless, these things happened. And mind you that this guy you just saw, that recording was made, I believe, less than a year ago or about a year ago. And so less than 2 years ago, this guy was threatened, who you just saw on camera, that the CIA said they would kill him and his family if he spoke to Bart Sibrel ever again. That was less than 2 years ago. The government is very concerned, Jimmy, that the truth will come out because, whoever did 9/11, 3,000 people are dead regardless. But this is a positive lie. This is candy given to a baby and taking away the candy. This is burned on people's hearts. They prayed for them. They cried. They waved their flag. They printed it on coins. They held ticker tape parades. They gave them medals of honor for lying. If the truth comes out about that, it will enrage the public. In fact, I showed this classified footage of fake photography, the crew of Apollo 11 using a 1-foot model to pretend to be halfway to the moon, dated 3 days into the mission with the third track of audio of the CIA telling them how to fake it. My greatest critics say the footage is authentic, but they went to the moon anyway. For some reason, they're faking part of it. And I showed it to the news director at NBC. And he said, my God, this absolutely proves they did not go to the moon. Yeah, and I said, well, when are we going to broadcast it? He says, I won't do it. I'm not going to go down in history as the man who caused the next American Civil War. So NBC News agreed that the tape I uncovered proved that the federal government faked the moon landing and refused to broadcast it for fear that it would bring down the federal government. And I'm saying, wait a minute, you're telling me if we tell the truth about the corruption in the federal government, then the corrupt federal government will come to an end? Isn't that what's supposed to happen? And isn't that a good thing? Isn't that interesting? That it's like this catch-22. 10 years go by, another news director at NBC sees the tape, says, we're going to do an exclusive, broadcast this nationwide, this footage of the crew of Apollo 11 faking being halfway to the moon, which means they can't leave Earth orbit. What a surprise. 50 years later, they got mannequins leaving Earth orbit instead of people because of radiation. They get a call. They told me, the producer told me, they got a call from the federal government threatening them not to broadcast it, and they didn't broadcast it. The BBC bought it. They were going to broadcast it. They got a call from the federal government telling them not to broadcast it. And less than 2 years ago, a man whose father eyewitnessed the faking of the moon landing, who murdered a coworker to keep it a secret, was threatened with death if he ever spoke to me again about it. So this is what's going on. Now, if some of your sleuths out there want to investigate through police records or newspaper records of Clovis, New Mexico in 1968 or 69, a person who worked at Cannon Air Force Base dying under mysterious circumstances or disappearing mysteriously, we know who Cyrus Eugene Akers murdered. And the reason why Gene changed his name from Akers to Gilmore is because he didn't want to be associated with his father, who was a murderer. In fact, he called the police on his father, and they had a big falling out right before the guy died. The military.
That was one of my questions. There you go.
Yeah, they investigated it, and obviously they kept that a secret because then you'd have to expose why did he commit the murder, and it was to cover up the fake moon landings. At one time, Cannon Air Force Base boasted on their website, President Johnson visited us in 1968, and they removed it as soon as we started investigating this. In fact, one of the people on the list, Robert Emenegger, boasted in his autobiography that he was at Cannon Air Force Base in 1968 for a, quote, classified reason. What a coincidence. So we have this proof, multiple proofs, that would prove it in a court of law that they didn't go to the moon. And
but Bart, don't nobody care about that. Nobody cares about you and your truths, right? You can have right now, you have proof. I mean, first of all, let me ask this question. How long have you been following this? How long have you been following the moon landing hoax?
Well, I started producing A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon in 1996. Or maybe before that, actually 1994. And I came to the suspicion that the moon missions were fake, I think in 1989, about 5 years before that, when someone at NASA in management told me they were fake. And then I had another person who worked for a NASA contractor who told me they were fake.
Let me go back to the video we just watched with the Gene. How did you meet Gene?
Well, he saw me on television, I think during the 50th anniversary of the event, where I was giving a lot of interviews, and I think he saw one I did with HBO, did a nationwide special about the moon landing fraud. And it was actually a very high quality short film. It was like only like 6.5 minutes or so, kind of like a news magazine segment. And they interviewed a lot of people. I was one of them that know that the moon missions were fake. And they handled it in a very open-minded way. And he contacted me. I get emails all the time from people saying, oh, I got this, proof, and it's not proof. Or I've heard of it before, and they think it's some great thing, and it's either not proof or I've heard of it. So I get an email from the eyewitness's son, and he says, oh, I've got this great proof. We didn't go to the moon. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I didn't ignore him, but I put him in line. I mean, like right now, I've got about 400 emails, and the oldest one is probably 5 months old, and I'm trying to get to them all. I do answer emails one by one. So I'm like, well, I'll get around to that, and I eventually do. And he's like, call me. And I'm like, just tell me in an email. And he's like, no, call me. I'm like, okay, I'll call you. But it was different. I was already editing my book, Moon Man, The True Story of a Filmmaker, on the CIA hit list, and which is on audio, by the way. I read it myself, or Kindle or print at Sibrel.com.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, just in the nick of time. So, I write a chapter about this revelation. I mean, I already knew they went. I already had them faking part of the mission right in front of my eyes. I already had 2 people at NASA tell me it was fake. But when you hear, from Cyrus Eugene Akers or his son that I was there, at Cannon Air Force Base on these dates, and I murdered a coworker to keep it a secret, it's, another chill down your spine. I'm like, boy, sheesh. And so I put it in the book.
I would like for people to honestly go to YouTube and look for this video, and I want you to look at it and judge for yourself. There was a part in the book where, Cyrus, that's his name of the video we just saw. He said that his home was burglarized twice.
Yeah, that was his son, and that actually is on the homepage of Sibrel.com, Sibrel.com. The video is right there on the homepage to see for free.
Here's the question I have for you. Here's the question I have for you, because in this video, he says that his home was broken into twice, and he had 2 computers taken. And he said he contacted you, and you were the one that you notified the authorities. He didn't notify the authorities. Is that right? Or
yeah, that's correct. Basically, in 1999, when I popped in a tape and it said "Do not show to the public" on the right on the screen, and it's an hour of a special effects shot over and over again of a 1-foot model of the Earth that they're making look like it's floating in the space halfway to the moon. I freaked out. I'm like, oh my gosh, they really didn't go to the moon. I call up Bill Casing, who was my source at NASA, who said they didn't go. And I'm like, Bill, they really didn't go. And I'm frantic. He's like, well, Bart, I told you. And then right when I just start describing this footage I found, I hear, eek! And I can just barely hear him, and he can barely hear me. And I'm like, Bill, don't go home. Don't sleep where you slept last night. And I start crying. I'm like, I got him. He's in danger because of me. I felt responsible for putting this old man in harm's way. And now, because he was talking to me about his father, eyewitnessing the moon landing fraud, he tells me not only was his home broken into, days later, he's threatened with death if he talks to me again. And I felt responsible for that. So I called. I happened to have access to a United States senator who's on the Intelligence Committee, and I had access to the press secretary at the White House. This is what a millionaire investor will do. And I had access to the FBI, someone in the media department who put me in touch with a regional honest person in this person's jurisdiction. And they all made sure he got protection and that the CIA backed off because they're wrong and he's right. I mean, the government is murdering their own people to cover up their own crimes. So not only are they taking $200 billion and faking the moon landing, they're using some of that money to hire CIA agents to kill people who try to expose it. This isn't even my opinion or theory. These are testimonies from the dead people's relatives. For example, the Apollo 1 crew was murdered by the CIA, according to the dead man's
That's where we
wife
were
and
going.
son.
That was getting ready to be my next question. Please tell me about the 3 astronauts that were killed before this Apollo mission. There was the astronaut that told everybody that this was not going along safely, and what ended up happening?
I mean, to having never been in outer space, with 50-year-older technology, to walking on another world in 8.5 years is just preposterous. Because 10 years after that, with 10 years better technology, it took 10 years to lift the 747 fuselage off the ground. They had to go through 168 engines, and millions of aircraft had already been built. So to go from never being in outer space to, driving cars on another world in less than 10 years is unheard of. The Hubble telescope in Earth orbit was 10 years behind schedule. So the crew that was going to be the first crew to walk on the moon, called Apollo 1, first on the moon. And the commander of that mission was the most beloved of all the astronauts because he had a mishap in an orbital flight, and that endeared him to the public when at a press conference someone said during this, life and death jeopardy that happened, "Were you afraid?" And he said, "Of course I was afraid." He admitted he was human, and everyone.
Hell yeah.
And then the NASA says, when the media and the public loves this guy more than any of the other astronauts, he's going to be the first man to walk on the moon. That's just a smart PR move, even if they really went. So he was preparing congressional reports because he's doing all these tests on the ground, and they can't get a wired intercom to work between 2 buildings. In fact, there's a clip, and a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, which you can see for free at Sibrel.com. It's in my film, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. I don't call attention to it, but about halfway to 3/4 of the way in there, the press corps is filming Neil Armstrong on the ground on a intentionally fake moon set in front of everybody, rehearsing picking up the first moon rock. So he's got like a stick with a bag on it to scoop up the first moon rock, and the bag falls off at the end of the stick. They can't get that to work, much less rockets, computers, oxygen, water supply, cooling supply, radiation, 2 launches there and back. They can't do it today. They have to send mannequins. Right. So Gus Grissom was preparing these reports, giving to his congressman, saying, "Look, this is, going nowhere." In fact, days before he died, he hung a lemon on the top of the spacecraft, invited in reporters without permission to take a picture of it. They went on national TV. The guy who's going to ride the rocket to the moon thinks it's a lemon. So the guys who knew they were going to fake it, who hadn't yet told the astronauts, said, he's a problem. So on January 26, 1967, when all these strange things were going on, he goes home from work that evening and tells his wife, Betty Grissom, who I interviewed for 4 hours. Okay. He told her that for some strange reason, for the first time ever, the CIA is all over the launch pad for some strange reason. And then the very next day, the guy's dead. You see that? So right after the lemon incident, right after they found the congressional report of him being a whistleblower, you see? And so that's still going on today. Less than 2 years ago, a whistleblower is being threatened with death if he talks to me again about the moon landing fraud. Do you think that would be necessary if they were real? I mean, come on. The senators know, congressmen know, the FBI knows, the White House knows that they're fake, but they're too embarrassed to tell the public, because then they'll say, well, what else did you fake? So they're just going along with it, thinking they can paint one more layer of paint over mold for one more year, when in fact they're going to infect the country even worse before they, tell the truth. The sooner they do it, the better, and the later they do it, the worse. So when Orwell said, whoever controls the past controls the future, that means as long as the federal government, which is corrupt, says in the past that the moon missions are real when they're not, those same criminals are controlling our present and future, which also means until the moon landing fraud is exposed, we will forever have a federal government that's corrupt.
Bart, I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions, and then I'm going to let you go because I appreciate your time. But, okay, we, the United States, back in 1968, 69, we could not make it to the moon. But since then, China's gone to the moon, if I'm not mistaken. And is Russia claiming that they've gone to the moon? Has anybody managed to get out of this radiation belt and make it to the moon? Has anybody made it to the moon?
Nobody has done it. Machines have done it. I mean, you can X-ray a toaster 1,000 times and it'll still make toast. X-ray a human being 1,000 times, you're going to have a problem.
And he's going to turn to
Russia,
toast.
That's right. There you go. China, Russia, and the United States have sent unmanned probes to the moon. I mean, there's a reason why today, with 50 years better technology, they're sending mannequins to orbit the moon and not humans, because humans would die. One of the clips at Sibrel.com is Kelly Smith from NASA saying there's lethal space radiation on the trip to the moon, and the technology necessary for a human to survive such a trip has yet to be invented. So how did they go to the moon on the first try when they can't do it today? The technology doesn't exist today. How could it exist 50 years ago? That didn't make any sense. So they're pretty much admitting indirectly that they didn't go to the moon. In fact, one space shuttle astronaut says they hope to someday go to the moon.
Go to the moon.
I've heard. And then President Bush Jr. said 20 years ago that we need to go to the moon as a logical first step to going to Mars. Well, we've been there 6 times, so why would you need to do it the 7th time to go to Mars?
That was getting ready to be my next question. If we haven't been to the moon, how in the hell are we going to make it to Mars?
Well, it's not going to happen. And they can't go to the moon now. China is actually the most industrialized nation on Earth. And they say from today, it's going to take 15 years to figure out how to put a man on the moon. So how could it take half that time 50 years ago? This doesn't make any sense. So I guess when Tricky Dick Nixon faked the moon landing, he figured someone else will have to deal with it, or maybe they thought in 10 years they'd go and then that one would be real. The longer it goes on before someone actually walks on the moon a second time, it's becoming more and more apparent that it was fake and more apparent that the federal government is corrupt. That's why they're into so much censorship, because more and more the corruption keeps being exposed. So they keep taking down more and more videos off the internet.
All right, listen here. I heard you put that on Tricky Dick, but do you put that on Tricky Dick? Or do you put that on Johnson? Didn't Johnson meet with aliens? Isn't it documented that Johnson met with aliens? Or do you put that on Kennedy, who told the world that we were going? He said we were going. And so who really gets the blame for that?
Jimmy, I've never been asked that question. That's a really good question. I guess the legal answer and the spiritual answer is the same. It's everybody's fault. Kennedy, I wouldn't really blame him because he's just a visionary. He said, hey, let's set it as a goal to go to the moon by the end of the decade. There's nothing wrong with setting a goal. The fact is cheating and lying and murdering because you're too embarrassed to say that you set a goal you can't do, that was Johnson's fault. And it also shows, Jimmy, that the people who run our country are juvenile, because faking a moon landing and covering it up because you're just too childish to admit that you set a goal you can't do is an extremely immature thing to do. And so the people that run our world are really immature. And if they're rich, then they're immature, spoiled brats. They didn't have to fake the moon landing. Johnson didn't have to do it. Then Nixon could have said, I'm not going to do this. No way. But he went along with it. And then the astronauts. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins could have told the world at their first and only press conference that it was fake. That's what they should have done. They probably were threatened with death or their families, just like the guy in the video you saw. They threatened to kill his family if he didn't cooperate.
That would explain the looks wouldn't that explain the looks that they had on their face during that press conference when they got back?
Absolutely. And that's shown in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon for 10 seconds. And a lot of people say that absolutely proves that they didn't go. They look like they're at the funeral of their mother because they're lying through their teeth and they hate it. They should have said right then, Jimmy, on live TV, look, I was blackmailed. The moon missions are fake. Will honorable people in the FBI, police surround my house and protect my family? And then the cockroaches were to run for the dark. But they didn't do that, and they should have. So it's the astronauts' fault at that point. And then it's whoever president comes along and knows the truth and doesn't tell the truth. So it's Bush's fault. And it's Clinton's fault. Clinton wrote in his book on page 156 of My Life that the moon missions were fake.
I didn't know that.
Didn't do anything about it. And then Trump can't even open the Kennedy assassination files 55 years after the fact. What is he, being blackmailed? He was with some 17-year-old on Epstein Island, probably, and and some
ouch
in camera and a smoke detector. And so it doesn't make sense to not open those files. Now we have the guy's, nephew, Bobby Kennedy Jr., who has access to more documents than anybody, who says with 100% certainty the CIA killed his uncle. Well, that's election interference if ever I heard about it, right? So it wasn't the Russians who killed Kennedy. It was the Americans who killed. It was the CIA who did it. And so our country has gone crazy, and these people and their apprentices and like-minded offspring are still in charge, right? Otherwise, they would tell the truth and not censor anybody. I mean, there's really no reason to censor anybody ever, especially when we claim to have a free press and free speech. Okay.
But we don't.
So, yeah, of course we don't. But for the government to say this is going on, and another person to upload a video and say, no, it's not going on. For them to take down the video only proves that the video taken down is truthful. Right? And so that whole censorship thing is tyrannical. And the fact that you had to ask permission to go to church, permission to go to the beach, permission to open your business means you're a slave. If one person tells you when you can or cannot leave your home, go to church, or go open your business, that's the master and you're a slave. I thought the federal government were our servants. No, they're our masters. Right? It's a lie that we're free. We are slaves. It's a lie. They say this lie, Jimmy, that we have the best health care in the world while 70% of the population is on prescription medicine. That means 70% of the population is sick. Is there any country in the world that has 70% of the population ill all the time? Whatever country that is has the worst health care in the world, and it's the land of the slaves. You see that? Did Russia fake the moon landing? Yeah, but not anymore. They're slaves. We're slaves.
Okay,
we have to ask permission to do everything.
Listen, I appreciate you coming on here. I'm going to wrap this up, but here's what I need you to do before we wrap this up. I need you, if you would please, give the Americans some advice. Give them some advice about what's going on right now, or what can we expect. You moved away. Tell the people what you think, or tell the people what you feel might be getting ready to come to. I normally would say to America, but I think we need to start talking about the world. But that's just me. Would you just please give the Americans some advice, please, Bart?
Well, first of all, if you believe God and believe the Word of God, Peter said to his generation of corrupt government, save yourself from this corrupt generation. And he meant spiritually. First, get right with God, because if you don't make it into the next life, your whole life is a failure, right? And then if Eisenhower had kind of like a, deathbed, last day in office warning, And Janet Napolitano did the same thing, where she says a natural disaster is coming that has never happened in the history of America. And the only natural disaster that has never happened in America that you could know for years in advance is a comet or an asteroid. So something like that is coming. And if these people around the world are trying to reduce the number of people here, it's probably to get ready for that event, so it'll be less of a shock. That's my personal opinion. I got a report from a Bilderberg group that was to the Pentagon projecting the population of every country in the world in the year 2025. And for some reason, they show the United States and Europe having like a 70 to 85% population reduction in the next 2 years. What a coincidence. 70 to 85% of the population just took a medicine for an illness they didn't have, that the former vice president of the company making the medicine said it's not necessary and not good for you. So something like that's going on as well. So, when I first was asked to do this film by someone at NASA who knew they were fake, I turned it down for fear it could be true and it would risk my life. Then after I started reading the Bible and realizing I'm going to die anyway, and that if they faked the moon landing, it's more profound than if they really went, I said, this is worth dying for. The world needs to know the truth. If you have cancer, you need to know. And so what good is it to gain the world and forfeit your soul? People are backing down from what is right to live a little longer and to hold their property a little bit longer and die and lose their property anyway. That's not really smart, is it? Especially when there's a creator who can throw you into hell or allow you into heaven. And it's partially based on whether you repent or not. Jesus said, repent or perish, right? And okay. I think it's in Hebrews 4:9. It says that Jesus is the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him, right? And it says in Revelation 2:14 and 15, Jesus says to the church, repent and do the things you did at first. Otherwise, I'll take your light away, which has got to mean your salvation there. Your light under a bowl and not, And then Acts 5:32 says the Holy Spirit is given to those who obey God. And James 2 says faith without deeds is dead. So we can't undo our sin. If I kill somebody, I can repent and go to heaven, but I can't bring them back to life. That is a scar on my soul that only the blood of Jesus will get rid of. However, to qualify for that blood, I have to let go of the world, which is sin, and take hold of God. Faithfulness or unfaithfulness. The Bible says when a spouse is unfaithful, you have the right to divorce them. And God has a right to divorce us even after we're baptized if we become unfaithful. That's why Jesus said, not to the pagans, but to the church, Matthew 24:13, only those who hold to the end will be saved. You see? Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's much you can do about the corrupt federal government. While it technically could be eradicated, I don't think it's going to happen. The plagues in Revelation come to, according to the Bible, to encourage people to repent. And then it says that most people will not. And Jesus says it's going to get so bad in the last days that if God does not intervene, no one will be saved. I take that to mean the evil people are going to have their way and their stated goal to lower the population by 94%. So what can you do? Save yourself from this corrupt generation, right? And if eternal life is everything, it doesn't really matter. This world, it doesn't matter. All that matters is getting right with God, staying right with God, and God promises that if you do that, you will live forever in a world where sin never happens again. That's a pretty good deal, if you ask me.
Bart, this is why this is why we did this show today, is because of the words that come out of your mouth, the wisdom that comes out of your mouth. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, sharing your wisdom. Believe me, if people just watch this, they're going to get more wisdom, more knowledge, and a way and a handle upon how to live their lives. Because what you just said, you can't find any preachers that are preaching that are speaking it. They used to talk about it, But you don't hear any of these prosperity preachers talking about that. So thank you very much for coming on this show and talking about it and saying it. And I'm letting you off of here. I'm stopping right here because there's a lot more things that I would like to talk to you about, like how in the hell did we let a weather balloon fly all over our country and then finally decide we're going to shoot it down? Really? You know what? I don't even know whether or not we believe that. Bart, thank you so much. We have to talk about Beyonce's concert. That tickets are running between $900 and $2,000. We have a lot of things.
I think
that
some of them were in the carriage of that balloon, unfortunately. But just have people go to Sibrel.com. They can see all the stuff, most of it for free. There's articles, there's videos for free, and they can see the horrific truth for themselves. And to me, it shows we live in a fallen world. When I popped in that tape, Jimmy, of the fake photography, I just wept. I'm like, they really did fake going to the moon. They faked mankind's greatest accomplishment. And Nixon had the arrogance to say it was the greatest event since creation when he knew they were not there. This is a spiritual message, the faking of the moon landing. And I talk about this at Sibrel.com.
And I want everyone to go and look at that. Go to YouTube, take a look at Sibrel.com. You have quite a few. I think, matter of fact, I've been looking at it like for the past couple of days, and judge for yourself. And, you know, and after you judge for yourself, say, oh, that guy's crazy. Or you may say, those two old guys kind of know what they're talking about. Bart, thank you so much. You are a blessing in my life, so I know you're a blessing to a lot of other people's lives, and I know you're probably a pain to some people in their backsides. So thank you so much for being that. Thank you so much for coming on Jimspiracy. Thank you, sir.
Well, you know, Jimmy, if I may add one thing,
please
be sure to let me say the second part. I'm glad we don't live in the same town, because if we did, we would just hang out all the time and not get any work done.
Very true. That's very true, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, we're going to be right back with the story from the book of James on Jimspiracy. You know, something we didn't say, Chris, that I normally would always start off a show with, and I always say that God is good all the time. And all the time, God is good.
Amen.
So, all right. Listen, for this story, this Bible story today, I'm going to take you to the book of Luke, chapter 2. Now, this was are you familiar with that story, Chris? Luke, chapter 2?
I don't know what's in chapter 2 offhand, but get into it. I'm probably familiar.
Well, Mary and Joseph and Jesus, they go to it's a celebration. And they go to the temple. Okay. All right. I don't
Oh, I know where you're going. Wrong. When Jesus is 12 years old, this one?
Yeah. Okay. He's 12 years old. And Mary and Joseph take him to a temple. Back in those days, when you would visit the temple, women would go one way, men would go another way. And the children would go with the women, okay? Now, what I think is interesting about this is Jesus is 12 years old, 12, 13 years old, okay? So, of course, Jesus is going to be with who? He's going to be with Mary, okay? At least, but maybe Mary is thinking, well, Jesus has been feeling himself lately, so he's with his daddy. Bottom line, y'all. Bottom line, Mary and Joseph lost Jesus. And I didn't know this. They lost Jesus for 3 days, man. Now, it's one thing if I lose my...
I believe they started home to Nazareth. and each thought he was with the other. So
there you go. There you go. I did not know that they lost him for 3 days. Now, I don't know how you go to God and tell God, hey, God, you know your son that you left us in charge of? Wait. Listen, God, God is like, where is my son? And they're like, he was with her. And she's like, no, he was with you. And God is like, find my son. And they finally find him. And when they find Jesus, I love this. Jesus is teaching the old men. He's teaching the OGs. He's teaching the wise men at the temple. And of course, when Mary finds him and Joseph, a mother, she's, well, what have you been doing? What are you? And man, I love this, man. Jesus said, I must be about my Father's business. Okay? And that just stuck out to me, because I think that that's one of the things that Joseph doesn't get credit for, is because he knew that Jesus was not actually his son. He knew that Jesus was the Son of God. And Jesus kind of looked at Mary like, told you. And, I brought this story up because, like we said earlier in the show, Chris and I both have been lost for a little more than 3 days since our last show. We've been lost from you all.
A little more than 3 months.
From each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as we both said, Chris and I are both going through things. A lot of things. But one of the things that I've told you, Chris, and we both say, is that we aren't alone. We're not special. Okay? There's a lot of us out here in America. There's a lot of us in the world right now that are going through stuff. And we're trying to go about our Father's business. And it's hard. But you know what? We have to keep going. We have to continue doing the Father's work. We have to continue trying to go about our Father's business. Or we have to continue handling our Father's business. And as God's people, suppose you go, well, what business? I don't know. Well, then that means that we need to find Jesus. And if nothing else sticks out from this show tonight, from Jim, I want to tell you, first of all, on behalf of Chris Foley, on behalf of Bart Sibrel, on behalf of me, as a people, we need to find Jesus. I love you. I'm going to see you again. And you know how we do here on Jimspiracy. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent, one from the other. We'll see you again with Jimspiracy. I love you.
Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for.
Yeah, are you not entertained? Ain't this what they tell you hustle for? I'm on my gladiator monologues, Russell Crowe. And honestly, I don't see what the fuss is for. You let your money blow and all we tryna do is sow it. Just so you know, this is Kingdom Biz. No Brooklyn Nets, I think we know who team this is. Come on, come all, and don't forget to bring the kids. And y'all gon' need a different planet just to dream this big. So bring your stacks to the table, and I'ma bring my fate. Then at the end of the day, we gon' see who win in this race. Since God is the judge, he'll probably throw out my case. So do us a favor, get that look off your face. They be like, you spit that fire, got them industry rap. Why you doing that Christian rap? Nobody listen to that. Then I reply with a sigh like I'm missing the fact. I'm trying to spread this holy gospel till my Savior get back.
I'm going in one time, these record labels all in my face, trying to forfeit my race. But still I'm going in one time, no matter the opposition I face, staying true to my faith. I'm about to give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Well, everything they offer, yeah, I'ma give it back. You can have it, crossing the world on my back, Mr. Atlas. I'm trying to get the people what they lacking. That's why I act a donkey on the track. Hit a passion, got something to say. You wanted to play, then come running my way and ruin G status is dead. No, ready to go, about to go in, you already know. Got my instructions, now give me your audience, hand me your mic and I'm ready to blow. One for the money, two for the show, three for everybody who encouraged me to go, get it. We finally did it, I ain't never turning back, shawty. I'm fully committed to my beliefs. I'm committed to the city, committed to the streets. I'm committed till they get it. Now people calling my phone check, telling me to not hold back. Bring back that old set. Bet it up, I'm going in one time. These record labels all in my face.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be ready. You about ready, Bart?
Yeah, let me comb my hair real quick.
Okay. And you're hearing me okay, Bart?
What'd you say?
You're hearing me okay?
What?
I'm not
messing with you.
What they ask for, I'm going in one time. These record labels all in my face, trying to forfeit my race. But still I'm going in one time, no matter the opposition I face, staying true to my faith. I'm about to give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for.